The reason why it was so important to me to make sure our education team was a part of this process is because who's facilitating the majority of these programs? It's them. They see things that I might necessarily not see because I'm not with those camp kiddos all day for 6+ hours. They are though, right? I'm not seeing all the time of how our schools come here and unload for field trips and then want to do classroom programs. They see that. So making sure they're in part of that process and their perspectives are reflected in that process was critical to me.
Hey there, Podcast Aquanauts. It's your host, Casey here. Since we opened in 1992, the Tennessee Aquarium has always served as a hugely important educational resource, not only for students in our own community, but for visiting learners from all over the country, if not beyond our borders. Millions of students, including yours truly, have made meaningful connections to the natural world in our galleries or been guided to make those connections through summer camps, pre-K programs, presentations here on our buildings, or during an outreach visit. Education has always been a pillar of our mission and our role in the community. In all of our years of operation, though, our many educational activities have been decentralized. As I'm recording this, however, we're on the eve of a very exciting new development that will change all of that. Given the constraints of operating with a fixed footprint like we do, it's not often that we make a new addition to our campus. But in a little more than 24 hours from when this episode goes live, we'll cut the ribbon on a brand new facility that will serve as the hub of our educational programming. This new learning center was created through a novel partnership with the people who will actually use it, our in-house educators and visiting teachers. And who better to decide how to shape a classroom than the person who will be standing behind the lectern? In this episode, we'll explore the making of this new space, what changes were brought about by teachers' input, and our hopes for how it amplifies our capacity to reach students and educators better in the future. That's enough for now, though, don't you think? On with the podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Podcast Aquatic, the official podcast of the Tennessee Aquarium. There are some exciting times just around the corner here at the aquarium. At the time that I'm recording this, we're about 2 weeks out from the opening of a pretty major addition to our campus here in downtown Chattanooga, and that is a new hub for all of our educational activity. But before I get too much into spoiling the discussion to come, I should introduce Natalie Rogers, our Director of Learning and Evaluation. Natalie, you have never been on the podcast before. Welcome.
No, thank you for having me.
Okay, so your boss, our VP of Conservation Science and Education, Dr. Anna George, has been on the show, so many times it's getting impossible to count on one hand anymore. But this is your first time. So can you tell everybody what exactly is your role here? What do you do? What are your responsibilities?
Yeah, so I am the Director of Learning and Evaluation. So a big title that pretty much just means that I oversee kind of the strategic vision for our education department. So those educational initiatives, those goals is what I oversee and my team who facilitates all of the programming and curriculum.
Okay. If you were to summarize in brief the strategy of the aquarium as far as its role as an educational resource, how would you do that? Because that is one thing that has been a pillar of who we are as an institution for, basically the entirety of our existence. We have been seen and positioned ourselves and reached out actively to become a resource for students. It's a place where a lot of school groups come and experience aquariums sometimes for the first time. That was true for me. So how do you see that? How do you put that all in a nutshell as far as our strategy and how we are acting as an educational resource?
Yeah, our strategy really is to be able to provide equitable access to our community. So schools, libraries, the Chattanooga community and beyond. So making sure, as you just said, be a resource to our community and whatever that means as far as educational learning opportunities. So if it needs to be something that's state standard aligned for our schools, we're going to figure out how to do that and kind of co-design what that looks like with that community. If that means providing camps or overnights or just after school opportunities to help families within our community, that's what that means as well. So just being a resource, I think, is really the key piece in making sure there's equitable access.
Now, you in your professional career have worked at a number of zoos in addition to the aquarium. How would you characterize the role that aquariums and zoos can play as an educational resource? I mean, we both just mentioned it, but how can people learn while they're at an aquarium or zoo? I mean, there are obvious benefits to coming in terms of just seeing really beautiful animals, but how does learning play into the picture? How fundamental is it to the experience that we want people to have when they're here?
Yeah, it's about making those meaningful connections. So, whether you are participating in a program offsite, so maybe you're at a school or even coming here as a guest, building those meaningful connections, which I think helps to drive empathy. So, I think that's very critical to the work that we're doing. So, whatever that means as far as that educational opportunity we might be providing, I think it really comes down to making sure we understand who our audiences are, understanding where they're at, and then designing some type of learning experience based off of that, so we can make sure we're having that meaningful connection.
Okay. Well, as we mentioned, you have been here. You came. I said you came from a background of having worked at other zoos. You've been here now for 4 years, a little
Over
more than
4
4 years.
years. Yep.
And you came to us from where?
So Kansas City Zoo at the time, but now they are the Kansas City Zoo and Aquarium. And before that, Zoo Atlanta.
Okay. And you were originally from, I believe, Memphis, right?
So I was originally born in Memphis, raised there until about middle school age, and then we moved to Norcross, Georgia, which is a suburb to the north of Atlanta. So, yeah, we moved there, and so I'm a mixture of Tennessee and Georgia girl, which that might cause some divide in some households, but that's who I am.
Okay. And we've talked about the fact that a lot of school kids come here, and I mentioned that I came here as a student. You also came here as a student.
I
So
did.
can you talk a little bit about your experience that you had here and the lasting impact that had, and kind of the completing that circle? We are actually going to get to the new S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center that is the focus of this episode, but I think people need to know more about you, because obviously your experience is, I think the experience that students and kids have here should resonate really strongly with you because you had your own experience. So I just want people to understand that so that they can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to the question that you asked me previously. Why are zoos and aquariums so important in this? When we're speaking about education in general, especially conservation education. I was one of the middle schoolers who came down to Tennessee Aquarium in the mid 90s, a long time ago. And growing up in Memphis, we had the Memphis Zoo, but no aquarium. So moving here, one of the things that I think was very important to that educational community in Gwinnett County and Georgia was to be able to expose middle school, elementary schools, high school, you name it, to different educational opportunities. So we decided to, or it was decided upon for us to take a trip to Chattanooga to go see the Choo Choo, go to Ruby Falls, and of course the Tennessee Aquarium. So when I got here at the Tennessee Aquarium, I remember distinctly touring the space and me constantly kind of getting in trouble because I kept lagging behind. I just was mesmerized by the animals that lived in our rivers. That was just mind-blowing for me, especially coming from Memphis, Tennessee. It's just not something we talked about or had access really to. So to be able to see that made me think, I know I love animals, but now I can probably do some work centered around animals. So that exposure and that awareness for me was key.
So it really shaped, the trajectory of your whole life.
Yeah, it really did. Like I said, I always loved animals. And that wasn't necessarily something my family was like, what are you doing? Why are you helping these stray cats in the neighborhood or going outside and making mud pies, whatever it was. I was not your typical kid in a lot of ways with my family. So it definitely shaped who I was and helped me to kind of understand that I could do something. I didn't know what that something was yet, but understanding there was a career for me eventually in this space.
And then you came back and you completed the circle and started working here. What has it been like as you kind of close in on that milestone anniversary of having worked here for 5 years next year? As you look back at that time, what are you proudest of having accomplished?
Man, that's a hard question. I'm kind of thinking. I have a lot of things I'm very proud of, but I think the most thing that I'm proud of is the team, the education team that we have put together, who do amazing work. They're very innovative, they're very passionate. So be able to restart all of our education offerings and kind of start from scratch and restructuring what our education department looked like.
Yeah, you kind of came in after the pandemic when things had been, there'd been a little
Yeah.
bit of a, not a fire sale, but there it'd been clear cut.
Yes, absolutely. So 2021 is when I arrived. So being able to navigate that world and be able to restructure our education offerings, and then also our education team. I'm very proud of that team and the work they continue to do.
Well, so we are here, as I've hinted at, and in just very typical fashion, I'm backing into the whole point of the conversation, which is to talk about our new S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center. So S.T.R.E.A.M is an acronym, S.T.R.E.A.M. You probably heard of STEM or STEAM, so Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, or Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. We just decided to tack on an extra letter in there. That R is stands for research, and I don't want to be the one to explain what it is. So why don't you explain to people who are listening what exactly S.T.R.E.A.M is, the S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center is, and what we're hoping to achieve with it?
We wanted to play off of STEAM and STEM because it's huge in our education community, whether it's informal education or formal education. But we wanted to add that R in there to specifically highlight all of the work that our Conservation Institute does and facilitates, and making sure that's a key component of our curricula that we provide out to our community. So that's why that R is there. So how S.T.R.E.A.M, we're looking to be able to utilize it. First and foremost, one of the things that we're most excited for is to kind of be in a centralized location on the plaza. So between those two aquarium buildings, where we currently are is in the IMAX building. So we have to do a little bit of traveling across busy downtown streets. And when you have 20 plus campers you're trying to navigate through, that can be a very stressful time.
And animals on
And
occasion.
animals on occasion, right? So to be able to be on the plaza is something we're very excited about, but also being able to having engaging and immersive learning spaces. I think is the other piece of it. The current classrooms that we have, they're great. They give us space, but they really wasn't designed for facilitating learning experiences. So this space is specifically designed for education in mind, which I'm very excited about. I think we all are. So we plan on using this space in many different ways. From our overnight programs, camp will be centralized in this space now. Our on-site classroom programs, so the programs that we have specifically for schools and other groups that might come here for field trips. Also, our early learning programs, so C-Sprouts will be hosted in this space as well. But looking at how we can expand upon teacher professional development as well is one of the biggest pieces and priority areas for us.
So you mentioned immersive learning. I want to know what immersive learning is, and then we'll circle back to the professional development aspect of this. So when you say you want these classrooms to feel like a place to have immersive learning, what does that mean exactly?
So for us, what that really means is this doesn't feel like just a classroom space. This takes you to maybe another place, maybe in your mind. So each one of our classrooms are themed out. It's highlighted from one classroom is specifically focused on streams. Another classroom is specifically focused on deep ocean. So from the murals and how the space was designed, it immerses you into that. So it's just not for walls that you're sitting in and tables and chairs, right? There's graphics on the wall. There's different ways and interactives that we can be able to utilize within that space. So really immerses that student into whatever topic we're trying to teach them or educate them about.
So those murals, I think they warrant a little bit of further discussion because
Yeah.
I have, when you work here and you do the kind of job that I do, I see a lot of these spaces at various stages of construction. And when this building was undergoing demolition and early stages of destruction, it's very hard to kind of see the vision for what it's going to become. And the official opening date for S.T.R.E.A.M is November
20th.
20th. So that's a couple weeks from now, as the time of recording. And so we're much closer now to the end point. And so we're like probably 90% of the way to the finish line. And I went in last week just to kind of get a take on what it was going to look like. And those murals had just gone up. Those are all they were all designed by our in-house graphic designers. I just did an interview with them for another episode of the podcast that'll probably I think that'll be coming out after this episode. So you can learn more about our graphic design process by tuning back in a couple weeks. But those murals are, when they said there were murals coming, I knew I guess I had a vision in my brain that wasn't quite true to what they actually are. They are floor to ceiling.
Yes.
When you say immersive, it makes sense because those murals are literally, your entire field of view is just taken up by this beautiful landscape and these animals that are kind of stylized in what has become our very traditional style for the aquarium. Why did we do that? I mean, and it was kind of a quick turnaround, I know, so that it was something that was obviously, the thought must have occurred to you or somebody else on the team that we should really take this approach. Why?
I think, well, first of all, shout out to Mike and Amy, who's a part of our graphics team, because us talking about it's just not even doing it justice, right?
No.
One of the things I think that was big for us for education is we knew what we had currently in our spaces, and we had already started to evaluate our current classroom spaces. We evaluated the pros and the cons. And one of the cons to the spaces we're currently in is, first of all, it was built as a computer lab, right? So if you think about kind of those early 1990s computer labs, gray walls, everything is beige or whatever.
They opened in 96 to give you an idea.
Right. So it's not a fun learning environment when you're in that space. If you think about it, we make it fun.
I say you guys are the ones who provide the fun. Yeah.
But you think about first impressions are everything. And sometimes it's hard to bounce back in. But when you come into our new space, like, I'm hoping that there will be oohs and ahs,
and
people
moment.
Want to learn in this space or do something within this space. They don't even have to know exactly what the space is supposed to entail, but wanting to come in that space and be in that space and do something, I think it's a huge win. And when I walk in that space, I want to do something fun, right?
Yeah.
It's just the thing that kind of makes that space kind of brings out in you a little bit. So I think it was very important for us to really think about what do we currently have and what we like to see. And that meant also looking at other education centers, whether that was a part of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, or maybe it was a museum. Whatever spaces also had education centers or learning environments. What did they like about it? What would they have loved if they were able to get X amount of dollars or no budget? What would you want in that space? So us also doing our research. So I think it was a combination of research and also understanding what we would love to see. And also the feedback sometimes we get from our students. They let us know. If you listen, they'll let you know.
So how long has this been in the works? I mean, is this something that you don't do a building like this in just a couple of months? So it's something that clearly has been on people's brains for a little while.
I would say probably maybe about a couple years, maybe give and take a little bit of just thinking about when this space became available first and foremost, right? And just thinking about what could the aquarium possibly do with this space? How could they utilize it?
Because it used to be a food court.
It used to be a food court that had no association with the aquarium itself, but a lot of times people didn't know that it was a totally different entity, right? But just to say, that was not the aquariums.
We are not responsible for whatever experience you had. We are not responsible for it.
We were not. But no, it was great because it did provide a place for people to eat right on the plaza. But once that kind of went away for whatever reason it was, then the discussion became, okay, the space is up for grab. It's in prime location. What do we do with it? And education, we did something with it.
Did you have to fight for the rights to that space? Because I brought this up before that, unlike a lot of zoos that have, and you would know this from
Yeah.
your time at the Kansas City Zoo, you worked at Zoo Atlanta, and maybe not as much at Zoo Atlanta because I think that's a smaller property, but like you've got acres to work with, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you want to build a new exhibit or even a new building, like you just say, okay, well, we'll take this quarter of an acre, we'll take this half an acre. You don't have that luxury at an aquarium. There is very much just limited space. Almost all of it is called for or spoken for, and so
Yes.
people are literally working in tiny closets that are just like constructed in a corner that's not been used before, literally. So when a whole building like that opens,
Yeah.
it feels like there's the potential for there to be kind of a gold rush on it. So
Yeah.
did you have to fight for ownership of it, or did people recognize that, okay, here's a real need, let's see what we can do with this to serve that need?
There really wasn't any fight about it. It was, yes, I think we just wanted to brainstorm and have an understanding. What is those key priority areas, right? What are those things that we need to be really looking at? And education was one of the top things. So really, when I think about it, especially being at other institutions, there was no fighting about it, tug or pull. I think our senior leadership team was like, okay, education, all right, now what do we do with it, right? So no fighting about it. I think everybody understood this was a priority. And like I said before, I think the safety piece for our students and just for our program participants in general, I think that was a key priority area for us.
So not having to do those street crossings you mentioned.
Not having to do the street crossings with a lot of campers, and then also putting us in a centralized place on the plaza where you see us. I think that's one of the things is it makes what we do, the work we do, more visible as well.
Yeah. The podcast Aquatic is made possible by support from the Tennessee Conservationist, the official magazine of Tennessee State Parks. This holiday season, give a gift that gets opened again and again. Printed sustainably, each issue of the Tennessee Conservationist is filled with fascinating stories about Tennessee's native species, rich history, and unique culture. Give a year subscription to your favorite outdoor enthusiast for just $20 at tnconservationist.org. So let's talk about the design process, and hopefully in this part of the discussion we can kind of circle back to that professional development aspect that you mentioned earlier. Who came up with the initial proposal, and how was that proposal shaped in terms of what you wanted this to become, and who was involved in the process of lending their voice to that discussion?
Yeah, what I would say is it took multiple individuals to kind of figure out what this looks like. Dr. Anna George really helped with that, especially with her relations in the community, deciding what architects would be great, who would be able to look through the lens of just education, formal and informal learning environments, and what does this look like, and what does that mean specifically for the Tennessee Aquarium. So instrumental there, I think Rodney in facilities, who does all things construction. I don't know how Rodney.
He's our director of facilities and maintenance.
Yes.
Director of facilities and safety, I think.
And safety, yes, that's I think you're right. But being a part of that process to make sure, all the things that I have no idea that goes on with construction.
His brain is so full of regulations and OSHA requirements and stuff. I don't know how he keeps it all straight, but he is impressive.
Yeah. So I think between our facilities team and education, and then also working with our architects on what this possibly could look like as well, really kind of shaped what that proposal was as far as what can we see being done in this space. When this space, we have this X amount to work with. Now, let's figure out what to do with it. I think they were all instrumental in this design process.
Yeah, and it's between, to give you an idea, it's between about 4,000 and 5,000 square feet.
Yes.
So that's the size of about two fairly large houses, square footage wise. It's not a small space. I mean, for to be dedicated entirely to education, how unusual is it to have like a facility of this size at a zoo or aquarium specifically earmarked for just the things we've been talking about?
Yeah. And so, one of the things for me is it's not as unusual as one might think depending on that institution. So their operating budget, their attendance, whatever it is, and how big their education programs are, right? What all different types of education programs they could do. I think for me, it's not unusual only because of the places I've worked at before. They've all had their own dedicated educational space. But I also know there's some members within our AZA community that doesn't have a true dedicated space. It might be back to what you're talking about. We're putting people in closets or we're making spaces work, but it wasn't necessarily designed for learning experiences. So in that way, I do think for some of our institutions within our community, this might be a little bit unusual, but for the most part, especially as we were doing our research, a lot of individuals had the space, but they needed touch-ups or they realized things just didn't work as well as they had hoped. So now they want to renovate, essentially. And a lot of individuals just are working with spaces that were given to them because that's what they had. So
as opposed to being purpose built like this
was. Purpose built with the intention of, hey, we want to do and offer educational opportunities within that space. So I think in that way, we are unique in some ways. But we all have our own challenges within this community of just making sure that we have the resources to be able to provide to our community. So is it space? Is it staffing? Whatever it is, how do we get to the people? I think we all have our own challenges.
Can you point to some specific elements of the design of this building that speak to the involvement that you and your team had in shaping that design? So things that specifically reflect how your educators are going to be using the space, things that changed specifically because of their input.
Yeah. First off is a water fountain in there.
Okay.
So that might sound very trivial, but when you are hosting 60 plus campers in the dead of Tennessee summer, water fountains and refillable water bottle stations are very important. One of our educators pointed out that our plan did not have that, so we ended up putting 2. But I think the other piece of that is going back to the murals, so being immersed in that space as well. Even thinking about our sensory rooms. So we have 2 spaces that's specifically designed for our individuals that might have some unique sensory processing challenges. So it gives us a quiet, calming space to handle different behavioral issues we might come across, especially for our camp programs. If it's a space for someone just to decompress in.
Recenter, yeah.
Yeah, and recenter and just decompress. This space allows them to do it. It's a very calming and soothing environment. If there is some interactives that's on the wall as well, the lighting is lower, very soothing. So part of that is because of our education staff and understanding some of the challenges we currently encounter when we are hosting programs, especially programs where there's no teachers or no adults with them. It's just us and those kiddos. So those are all part of the things that came into play in storage. That might not sound like fun, but we have a lot of stuff. So thinking about how to store all these things. So our education team was embedded in it, pretty much every level of this process.
Is that unusual? Because
I will say yes, probably. I would say that at least unusual for me coming from my perspective. I think it's very important, and the reason why it was so important to me to make sure our education team was a part of this process is because who's facilitating the majority of these programs? It's them. Mm-hmm. They see things that I might necessarily not see because I'm not with those camp kiddos all day for 6+ hours. They are, though, right? I'm not seeing all the time of how our schools come here and unload for field trips and then want to do classroom programs. They see that. So making sure they're in part of that process and their perspectives are reflected in that process was critical to me.
So let's circle back now to talking about that professional development aspect, because it's not just students who are going to be using this space, but also teachers. So talk about that aspect and how that will play out in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, so we really want to grow our teacher professional development opportunities. We do host workshops right now specifically for Hamilton County. We've hosted workshops before. We've done teacher professional developments, but we want to really expand what those offerings look like. and really co-design or work with and collaborate with that community, that educational community, of what resources that they will find useful and impactful for the work that they're doing. So what I really would like to see is an expansion of teacher professional development, and us being the Tennessee Aquarium co-designing with regarding the resources we put out to the community with our teachers, our administrators, our instructional coaches, to make sure that we are helping support them in any way that we can. So that's where I kind of see this as really growing as well. And I think it would be a lot easier now in the new stream space.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and throw this really quickly over to a discussion that I had with Rachel Hargis, who is with UNUM, one of the main longtime supporters of the aquarium. UNUM provided a lot of the support that made the STREAM Learning Center possible. So I'm going to cut real quickly to the discussion that I had with her, and then we'll come right back and continue this discussion, Natalie. All right, and so now we're going to talk about the origins of this project with Rachel Hargis, who's the manager of corporate social responsibility at UNUM, which is one of the main underwriters of the STREAM Learning Center here at the aquarium. And it just seems appropriate to reach out and let you explain why, Rachel, first of all, thanks for joining us, but also to explain why this was something that UNUM saw value in supporting. But before we get too into that, I think we should explain your role at UNUM. So you're the manager of corporate social responsibility. What does that mean exactly? What do you do?
My short spiel is that I'm UNUM in the community. So I do all of our relationships with nonprofits. That's things like grants, charitable sponsorships. I set up volunteering opportunities, and kind of I'm finding ways for our employees to get involved in the community. The way I explain it to our employees is my job is to kind of let employees know about what are the issues that are impacting our community, who are the nonprofits that are working to address those things, and how can they as employees get involved? If it's being a financial contributor, if it's volunteering, if it's just being an advocate and sharing that they've learned about this organization to their circles of influence. So that's my job.
Walk us through how you became involved in UNUM's support of the STREAM Learning Center, and what about the initial proposal we made to UNUM to potentially be a supporter spoke to those things that you were talking about earlier and your role?
Sure. So UNUM has a really long history of supporting the aquarium. We've been strong partners since the aquarium opened, and their work in conservation and education both align really well with what we as a company are trying to the impact that we're trying to have in communities. And for years, we've supported the aquarium's education initiatives, things like field trips for Hamilton County school students to the aquarium, and conservation fellowships. We support STEAM as a general rule. And so the STREAM Learning Center, STEAM with the added R for research, which I think is really clever and a great nod to the work that they do at the Conservation Institute, is again right up our CSR alley. Learning is super important, and we are really invested in getting kids who are under-resourced the opportunity to learn about things that they might not see in their regular general classroom, and to have experiences that can kind of spark some creativity and career aspirations. Honestly, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I think the opportunity for the thousands of school students, not just Hamilton County students, but regionally and kind of from across the country, if I understand the intent correctly, thousands of students will get exposure to career opportunities, and kind of just to learn about what's happening. What is the science behind what's happening in the aquarium? How do these animals impact the local environment? What are the downstream impacts of putting litter into the river? How does that impact the biodiversity? How does biodiversity impact you as a kid living in downtown Chattanooga or up on Signal Mountain? What do those things look like? What is the course of that? And so the STREAM Learning Center, it's an excellent partnership for us because we want kids to be learning these things. We put a lot of emphasis on STREAM learning, STEAM learning, I guess. And we're also really excited about the opportunity for Hamilton County school teachers to the professional development that having this space is going to offer to them. Part of our work in education is not just on students. We also focus on professional development for teachers. Students can only learn what they are taught, and having high quality teachers with access to high quality resources for professional development is obviously very important. And so we're excited about the variety of classrooms, the type, like the inclusive nature of the classrooms will help set up a learning atmosphere for all students. So that's a long answer, but we're really excited. And there's a lot of facets of this that really match the impact that we're trying to have in the community. And the aquarium's been an incredible partner to us for decades.
I think you'll be thrilled. I don't just say that because I work here. I really do think this is going to be one of those facilities that is not only going to be an excellent resource to the people you talked about earlier, the students and teachers who are going to make use of it, but really it's going to set the aquarium in Chattanooga up as a not a peer list, but one of the upper echelons of facilities for this kind of learning, these kind of learning opportunities in the future. So the fact that you're bringing it to life, I think, is going to have an impact that is going to ripple probably for a long, long time.
Part of the exciting design of the space, sorry, I'm going on another tangent, but part of the exciting design of the space is that the aquarium's educators really had a ton of like influence in what this space looked like. And so like how the plans were drawn, what this space is created to be. And so I think the S.T.R.E.A.M Center is going to be great for Hamilton County. It's great for Chattanooga, but it's going to be an incredible benefit to all parts of the country that can get here.
Well, I think with that, honestly, Rachel, I just wanted to take a brief interlude from the discussion that I'm having with Natalie to give you an opportunity to speak on UNUM's behalf, because this program or this project would not have been realized without the support of UNUM. So I felt it was appropriate to give a chance for UNUM to explain why you saw this need and leapt to supporting it. And hopefully the people who are listening to this understand now why it makes sense that an insurance company as large as UNUM would see this as a project that was worth helping to bring to life. Thank you for coming on to share those thoughts and explain the connection between the aquarium and UNUM that's, as you said, been around at this point for 34 years.
Thank you so much for having me. And the short answer to why UNUM is involved is that this is the community that's supporting us, and we want to make sure that we're supporting this community in turn.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get back to Natalie and the discussion at hand. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
And we're back. So, Natalie, one thing I think is kind of neat about the whole approach that you and your team have taken, is that it kind of feels like letting the teachers design the school. And I think I always wondered. My mom was a teacher, and my grandmother, great grandmother. I've got sisters-in-law who are actively teachers right now, and I always kind of wondered, like, they complain justifiably about having to kind of mold their approach to education to the space that they're given, as opposed to molding the space itself to their needs. So as you think about that, what is your excitement level like? I mean, that to me is a very exciting notion, that you would give the power of designing a space to the people who are actually going to use it. Like, how excited are you? We talked about you just being the things you're excited about looking back at 5 years. How does this measure up?
I'm very excited. I'm very excited in creating partnerships with our school and community organizations. So I think, especially as you talked about, certain individuals in your family being teachers, one of the things I think is very important for us not to do is to try to dictate or assume we understand what their priorities are within their classroom. I think it's very important for us to make sure those voices are at the table as we're talking about co-designing. And it becomes more of a partnership, right? We're building, I think, authentic relationships at that point, right? Having those conversations and really thinking about, here's my challenges, here's my barriers. Now, how can the Tennessee Aquarium help help support us within the classroom. I think that's what I'm most excited about. I will say previously as a teacher, one of the things I struggled with a lot was sometimes resources that were given to you didn't have your input. So you needed to use it for the classroom. You were made to use it in the classroom, but there really wasn't any conversation centered around, is this really useful for me being a teacher and the students in which I'm serving?
Like, does this make sense?
Does it make sense for what I'm doing? And so it's very important for us to make sure we get that feedback from that community. I don't want to design something that is not usable, which means we won't have any type of impact at all if it's not usable. So I want to make sure they're at the table. So that gets me excited. Building those relationships and building authentic relationships really excites me.
So as you look forward to the S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center becoming active and a part of our Plaza experience, what do you think people are going to see, or how are they going to experience S.T.R.E.A.M as they're just visiting the aquarium? Like, what are they going to see happening in this building that's going to make it appear to be actively a part of who we are in our campus?
I think the first thing is just the building itself. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of times I've gone out into the community where there's still individuals that do not realize we have any type of educational offerings. And I know we've worked really hard to expand our reach, and we've done a really good job of that. But there's still individuals that do not realize the work that the education team does, right? And the education opportunities we can provide. So I think the first thing is having it visible to people, where it piques their curiosity to try to understand, oh, they have it. What does this mean, right? Oh, they do camps. Oh, they have, programs for early learners. I think being able to be more visible will help to kind of spread the awareness of the work we're doing. And then too, as they're seeing programs happening, whether it's in S.T.R.E.A.M currently or within the aquarium buildings, I think it will help better connect them to the work we're doing and why. So I'm just excited for this new space and all the opportunities that are going to come out of it.
Because those classrooms actually kind of face out to the plaza, right? So you can... I assume that when you're in like the estuary classroom, if you're giving a presentation or a program, people who are just like happen to be walking by the building are going to be able to look in and see potentially like an animal in front of a lot of kids, and so they'll connect the dots.
Yes, it might not be as clear because I don't know if you've seen it from the outside a little bit. It looks a little murky, but they'll know something is happening in that space a little bit. But yeah, I think so, and especially as they're seeing groups go into that space, I think that will pique their curiosity of, what is this group doing? What's happening over here? So once again, it's the visibility and helping to spread the awareness of the work we do.
What about the people who are just visiting the aquarium just for a visit? What will S.T.R.E.A.M play a role for like the average general admission guest? Will they be doing anything or have access to the building? Will anything be happening there that will just affect their experience at the aquarium?
Yeah, I think it will definitely depend on the day and what all we have going on. So I think about, the various times throughout the years where we do awareness days that connects people to some type of conservation topic through hands-on learning, right? So I think there's opportunities for it. It might not be a daily thing, but absolutely when we have programs going on in that space, people can definitely ask if they need to learn more information about anything that we do. We'll have an education staff member in that space to be able to answer questions. So yeah, it might not necessarily look of just being able to go in that space and just be open. The door's open all the time, but there are going to be programs that are happening. And if people have questions, we're here to help answer them.
Well, and I guess part of the reality of a building like this is that if you design it the right way, there's untapped potential, right? So day one, we may not be hitting 100% of the potential, but that's a good thing, right? Because that gives us room to expand and mold, and mold what we're doing to meet needs as they arise, and we realize, oh, okay, well maybe we can do this that'll meet the public where they're at.
Yes, absolutely. So once again, it can vary. One thing of working in this industry, no 2 days are really the same.
Nope.
So things look very differently from a Monday to tomorrow.
Sometimes you're Tuesday, podcasting, looking out over a garden of plants and a fish pond.
Right. So I think it just depends, but I want to make sure that people are aware that they can ask questions, and we're here as a resource to learn more about what we do.
The thing I think that's neat about S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center is that you mentioned the Tennessee Aquarium Conservation Institute earlier. And one thing that's interesting to me about S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center is that it shares a similar sort of role for our educational work that Tennessee serves for our conservation work. So prior to the opening of that freshwater field station back in 2016, so 10 years ago next year, all of our conservation efforts, they were happening, but they weren't centralized.
Right.
And it sounds like there's a very similar sort of story arc here going on with S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center in that we are doing a lot of these education things, but as you pointed out, they're kind of tucked away in all the various locations that they're currently happening. So do you see benefit to this all kind of being kind of a hub of our educational activities and offerings? Like, does the fact that it's all in one space amplify what we're able to do?
I think it amplifies and it elevates what we do. So absolutely, this gives us a centralized hub, like you mentioned, and it gives us, going back to that visibility, right, which I think is key to spreading awareness of the work we do. So absolutely. And I think for some individuals, I won't say a lot, but for some individuals, if they've seen the work we've done, the education team has done, it's typically maybe at their school, right? Or somewhere in the community, maybe at a community festival.
Library.
Right, or a library. But a lot of individuals don't realize all the other offerings that we have and how we can support them and how we can be a resource for them. So I think this will definitely shed light on that.
So the mission of the aquarium, to connect people with nature and empower them to make informed decisions about water and wildlife. When you make an investment like this,
yes,
anything and everything that we do is in service to that mission, right? So how do you see S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center day one and in the days and weeks and months and years to follow, helping to move the needle in terms of achieving that mission? What role does S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center play in seeing us over the finish line, if there is one, for that mission?
Yeah, I think essentially taken from our mission statement, connection, education, that's what we do, right? That's the purpose. It should be the purpose, right? Is to be able to connect people to our mission and the work that we're doing, right? And then empowering them to some type of call to action. I think the empower and the connect is what educators do. So I think we're directly tied into our mission because of those two key words, connect and empower.
Well, and as you pointed out earlier in the discussion, the experience that you have here as a student really can be a life-shaping kind of opportunity. So do you see more people like you following, having that kind of experience specifically because of the fact that we will now have access to this tremendous resource that is the S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center?
That's the hope and that's the goal, right? I think this is why we do this, right? To help shape those future decision makers. That's why we do what we do.
Maybe there'll be another Natalie sitting there in the estuary classroom, looking at a picture of or a drawing of a crawfish and start dreaming.
And hopefully so. There will be another individual who will dream big and have all sorts of ambitions and aspirations because of their experience here at the aquarium. I mean, that's the goal, right?
That is the goal. Now, if people who are listening to this conversation that you and I have been having for the last 40 minutes or so,
has it been that long?
are really excited about S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center and the potential to use it as a student or as a teacher, how can they go about learning more about ways that they can do that? Whether that's a program that they want to do, if they want to classroom visit, if they want to take advantage of a professional development opportunity, how can they learn more about the ways that they can utilize S.T.R.E.A.M?
I will say first, our website is a great resource. We have an amazing new website where we have an educators page on there that people can go. They can see all of our contact information. They can reach out to us via our education email address as well. Our numbers are on there as well. So at any point they have questions, they can feel free to reach out to us via email or via phone as well.
What is that email address?
So it's edu-mail at Tennessee 10aqua.org. I had to think about it.
edu-mail at tnaqua.org.
Yes, I had to make sure I said it right because I was going to say the other one, and that wasn't right.
Okay, so they can email, they can look at our website, which is tnaqua.org, and the education page would be under one of the subsections of that page. So that'll get you to the main site, and then you can find your way there. All right, well, Natalie, I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
By the time this comes out, I think the grand opening will be imminent. I think this will go live the day before the actual grand opening. So I'm excited about S.T.R.E.A.M, about the opportunities that it's going to open up for us. And as the son of a teacher and the brother-in-law to a lot of teachers, I just know that this is kind of a dream scenario for a lot of educators to have this kind of input, to shape the space that they'll be using to reach kids and teachers where they're at. So good for you and good for us, and I'm just excited.
Good for our community. Yeah.
All right, well, Natalie, unless you have anything else to add, I'll go ahead and wrap up the episode.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on and making your first appearance here on the podcast Aquatic. And those of you who are listening, if you have any questions for an expert like Natalie or one of the other specialists here at the aquarium, go ahead and send it to me at my email address, which is podcast@tnaqua.org. While you're online, go ahead and feel free to leave us a rating or write us a review if you are feeling like you've got a little bit more time and have had a good experience listening to the show. If you haven't had a good experience, maybe don't leave a rating. But we love 5-star reviews. They actually do help with the algorithm and making sure that more people hear the show and learn more about the things that we're doing here at the aquarium, like the S.T.R.E.A.M Learning Center. And in the meantime, until next time, remember that every drop matters.